I received a very interesting question recently about a young man who has gotten himself into a mountain of debt, $500,000 worth to be exact. And the situation is that he's got a very successful business, but every time his business starts to get a little bit better, he gets a little bit more in debt. He's got a Ferrari that he's leasing for $5,000 a month. The insurance costs him another $3,000 a month. He rents his home. And everything he's got is payments. And his payments are so overextended that he has to draw an enormous salary out of his business. So to the average person, his business would be considered to be very successful, but to him, he's floundering. And the question is, what is he supposed to do about this situation? Well, the best thing to do, first of all, is to really apply ruthless compassion principles to the situation. And that would be first starting with the ruthlessness, which is to really look honestly at himself and ask himself, why am I spending the money the way I am? And in fact, one of his friends said about him that if he were to just expand his business that much more, he would just find something else to buy. You know, he's got the Ferrari now, maybe he would go and buy a boat. If he had a boat, maybe he would go and buy a yacht. He's that kind of person. So we have to look at what's going on with his money spending. So the first issue would be to be ruthless with himself about his spending issues and the need he has to always have more and more and more, and the fact that it never seems to be enough. And then the second piece would be the compassion piece, which would be instead of feeling ashamed of himself or instead of feeling such a sense of pride that he doesn't want to look at it, to just be compassionate with himself and to look at what's going on without beating himself up, without berating himself, without feeling bad about himself, but just honestly take stock so that he can make some changes. Because if he doesn't apply ruthless compassion, he's on the verge of going to a loan shark to pay off his debt because he is too proud to go to credit counseling, to possibly declare bankruptcy and start fresh. And that would be a real tragedy because his pride might actually create a far, far worse situation than he's in now. It's one thing to be in debt, it's another thing to be in debt to loan sharks. So ruthless compassion applied to the situation would be to look honestly but compassionately within himself to what's going on and then deal effectively in reality, not because of pride, not because of shame, but just realistically with his problem, and then he'll be able to get out of it.